Well, welcome aboard, folks. Our Monday telecast. We got Pete in today for Brian, who's out and about.
Glad to have you here, Pete.
Appreciate it.
How was your weekend?
It was good.
Good.
A little bit of travel. Not as good as yours, though.
Yeah, I actually had a chance to go to the Masters. It was absolutely wonderful.
And she distracted Jordan Spieth. She did.
It's confirmed.
I did get to see him. I hated that he didn't win. It was a shame because I like him a lot.
Oh, well. Speaking of golf, a guy who owns a whole bunch of golf clubs is Donald Trump. He's running for president. He joins us live from somewhere in his empire. Mr. Trump, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
First of all, you know what? What'd you think of the Masters yesterday?
Well, I thought it was great to watch. I thought, and I know Jordan, he's a wonderful young guy. He's had a very life-altering experience. You know, it looked like he was just going to sail right through, and that's golf. It's a tough sport. That's life. That's golf. That's sports. That's everything. I mean, it can happen.
I don't know.
But he's a great young guy, and he'll be fine, and he'll be back.
Yeah, he is such a great guy. Good, just a good role model for the young kids, too.
Absolutely.
All right, so yesterday, or over the weekend, you lost the state of Colorado, and you tweeted about this. You said you were angry, and you said it was unfair. Why do you think that?
Well, it really started with Colorado, and the people out there are going crazy, you know, in the Denver area and Colorado itself, and they're going absolutely crazy because they weren't given a vote. This was given by politicians. It's a crooked deal, and I see it. And I see it, honestly, I see it with Bernie, too. You know, I've gotten millions more votes, millions, not just a couple, millions of more votes than Cruz. And I've gotten hundreds of delegates more, and we keep fighting. And then you have a Colorado where they you know, just get all of these delegates, and it's not a system. There was no voting. I didn't go out there to make a speech or anything. There's no voting. And, you know, I heard Pete say, well, that's the way it is. Well, that really shouldn't be the way it is. This was changed in the summer to help a guy like Cruz, and it's not right now. You know, I won, as an example, South Carolina. I won it by a landslide, like a massive landslide, and now they're trying to pick off those delegates one by one. That's not the way democracy is supposed to work. And, you know, they offer them trips, they offer them all sorts of things, and you're allowed to do that. I mean, you're allowed to offer trips, and you can buy all these votes. What kind of a system is this? Now, I'm an outsider, and I came into the system, and I'm winning the votes by millions of votes. But the system is rigged. It's crooked. When you look even at Bernie, I'm not a fan of Bernie, but every time I turn on your show, Bernie wins, Bernie wins, and yet Bernie's not winning. I mean, it's a rigged system. It's a rigged system.
It looks like it.
Mr. Trump, I've been a part of the caucus system in Minnesota. It is a difficult system, and I was steamrolled by and out-organized by a Ron Paul movement. Isn't it just fair to say that these are the rules, Ted Cruz is organized, and you're just flat-out being out-organized?
No, because I've got millions more votes. I mean, you could say he's out-organized because I have millions of more votes, Pete, and I happen to have more delegates than he does by a lot. But when you go into a Colorado where the people of Colorado are complaining that they're not allowed to vote, that's the best of all because they're not even allowed to vote. Or when I go into Louisiana and I win Louisiana by a lot, I get thousands of more votes than Cruz, and then I find out that I get less delegates. You know, hey, I'm somebody coming in to make America great again. I'm coming in to do something positive. I'm an outsider. The system's rigged. I see it. I see it now 100%. And by the way, not just on our side. I think it's worse on the Republican side. When you can have a Colorado where the people don't get a chance to vote, and the people out in Colorado are going nuts. They're marching. They're having a lot of problems out there because of this. This was a political hack deal, like so much of our country. This is what our country's all about, I guess.
Well, speaking of a hack deal, I'm sure you saw over the weekend, the Boston Globe was just trying to start a conversation about what it would be like a year from now if you were president. And some of the headlines are obvious. The big one there, deportations to begin. Then on the side, it says markets sink as trade war looms. Trump on Nobel Prize shortlist. U.S. soldiers refuse orders to kill ISIS families right there. Mr. Trump, they said they wanted to start a conversation, but, you know, we've had the conversation, and Americans do want our border secured.
Well, you know, Massachusetts, I won Massachusetts with almost 50% of the vote, and there were many candidates running. So when you get 50%, I had many candidates. That was a while ago, a month and a half. And it just shows you the power that paper has because they were, just vehemently against. They don't want to see strong borders. They don't want to see all of the things that you talk about over there. They don't want to see good trade. They want to see bad trade deals because that's all we have in our country is bad trade. We have the worst trade deals now that I've really gotten into it. We have the worst deals, the most incompetent deals I've ever seen. Our country's going to go bust. We'll lose with every single country we make a deal with. We lose tremendous amounts of money and jobs and factories and it'll all change. But, it just shows you, here's a paper that was sold for $1 a little while ago, $1, and that's what it's worth, $1.
What's your message to the paper this morning? Because a lot of people are saying, what about the other side of this? Why aren't they doing this for Hillary Clinton? And if they did, would there be outrage?
Well, they wouldn't do it on the other side. They want to do it on this side. I mean, it's a very sad thing, and it's sad for the paper. It used to be considered a major paper, and now it's like a supermarket throwout. You take a look at it. There's almost nothing in. There's no ads.
Well, you're the front runner for the Republicans. She's the front runner for the Democrats. They should do this for her and make it just as negative.
They should.
Well, that would be fair.
I wouldn't hold my breath, I must say. I wouldn't hold my breath, but they certainly should.
All right. We know you are in a pitched battle right now over New York, although, you look at the polls and you're over 50%. The New York Police Department Sergeants Benevolent Association is calling for Bill Clinton to apologize for what he said about the death of Eric Garner, killed in 2014, what he said yesterday in Harlem. Listen to this, Mr. Trump.
We're all sick of seeing these videos, these young African-American men shot in the street by police officers. In New York, we lost a young man who was caught in a chokehold for selling 3 illegal cigarettes. That is not a capital offense.
Garner died after the police chokehold because he was stopped for selling those Lucy cigarettes. But a grand jury eventually said, we're not going to press charges against the cop. The fellow who runs the Sergeants Benevolent Association, Ed Mullen, said of Bill Clinton, his facts are once again as wrong as the fantasy video story that was fabricated to the American people about the attack in Benghazi, where 4 brave Americans were left behind and murdered. His comments are not only wrong, but divisive. Slate magazine last week said that Hillary should fire Bill Clinton. Is he doing more harm than good to her campaign?
Well, you never know until the election takes place, frankly. He said some things which a lot of people said, like last week, where he was ranting and raving, and a lot of people said what he did then was right. The next day he came out and apologized. You really never know. I would say he probably helps her. I don't think she's doing particularly well. Hey, look, she's another one. She loses every week, and yet she's winning because the system's rigged, okay? She's got superdelegates. And how did she get the superdelegates? They're appointed. So Bernie, I'm not a fan of Bernie even in a little bit, okay? The guy is terrible. But Bernie, every time you turn on the television, he wins. He wins a state. He wins this one, this one, this one. And then you listen to the so-called experts, and they say, well, Bernie has no road to victory, okay? Now, you say, what kind of a system is this? So, I don't know. I can't tell you whether or not Bill helps. Probably he doesn't hurt, frankly.
Mr. Trump, on another story that's been in headlines recently, the current CIA chief says he won't allow waterboarding, even if ordered by a future president. You've been very forceful and clear about the need to use harsher tactics against enemies that are ferocious against us. What do you think about his comments, and what kind of person would you appoint to that position?
Well, I think his comments are ridiculous. I mean, they chop off heads and they drown people in cages with 50 in a cage, in big steel, heavy cages. Drop them right into the water, drown people, and we can't waterboard, and we can't do anything. And we're playing on different fields, and we have a huge problem with ISIS, which we can't beat. And the reason we can't beat them is we won't use strong tactics, whether it's this or other things. So I think his comments are ridiculous. Can you imagine these ISIS people sitting around eating and talking about this country won't allow waterboarding, and they just chopped off 50 heads?
Right.
It's just a little crazy. Let's talk a little bit about the state of the race right now. As I mentioned a little while ago, here in New York, you're north of 50% against John Kasich is actually in second place, and then followed by Ted Cruz. Also, you have a gigantic lead as well in Pennsylvania. What are your predictions for those 2 states?
Well, I think I'm doing very well. I was up in Rochester, which is having tremendous problems. It's losing all of its jobs. And I was there. We had a crowd of over 10,000 people. We had to send away 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 people. It was like a love fest, and I think we're doing really well in New York. Cruz came out with New York values. He hates New York. He hates the people of New York. And what was really obvious, that was during the debate. He brought that up, and I gave him a lecture on how great the people are in New York, and everybody understands that. I mean, using the World Trade Center as a reference, the job they've done is incredible. The comeback is incredible.
And you went down to you toured the 9/11 memorial over the weekend.
I did, and they've done a fantastic job with it, a really fantastic job. But, when you look at Cruz, and, then he's trying to change it so that, well, he didn't mean that. Well, when you watch his words during the debate, there was hatred, and I will tell you, it showed hatred. And for him to get any votes in New York is hard for me to believe. If I were in New York, I wouldn't even consider him to vote for him because he's disgraceful. And he didn't help New York with Sandy, and he didn't help New York on other occasions when he could have helped New York in the past as a senator. He voted against anything having to do with New York. So Cruz should not be voted on. If you're a New Yorker, and assuming you love New York, which we do as New Yorkers, you shouldn't be voting for Ted Cruz.
Just one last question. There are 2 New Yorkers who won't be able to vote for you or Ted Cruz, Ivanka and Eric Trump, unable to register because of the rules. Are the rules in New York unfair as well?
No, they had a long time register, and they were, unaware of the rules, and they didn't register in time. So they feel very, very guilty. They feel very guilty, but it's fine. I mean, I understand that. I think they have to register a year in advance, and they didn't. So Eric and Ivanka, I guess, won't be voting.
Are you cutting off their allowance?
Yes, no more allowance.
Does that mean, what if you decided to choose Ivanka to be your VP if you did get the nomination? Does that mean she couldn't become a vice president?
Well, number one, I wouldn't be doing that, although a lot of people would like to see that. If
yeah, because we looked at the numbers. She's 34 right now, but she will be 35, and the rules say she has to be 35.
A lot of people would like that choice, but it won't happen. Okay, that I will tell you, it won't happen.
She has a lot going on. She has 3 babies to raise.
There you go. All right,
she's doing a good job.
Yeah,
absolutely.
she is. Thank you,
Donald Trump. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.